It is 5 p.m., so I'll call things to order. And we'll go all the way down to, we don't have to adopt this one. Adopt it in there, no? No, good. And Director Juke is not here either. Who's the be taking this one?
She's going to be here momentarily, so perhaps we could skip down to the budget timeline.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Manager Director, would you care to join us and go through the budget timeline? Oops.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy and Council. Before you have the 2020 budget timeline for your consideration. Every year we establish some goals and to present the budget and get the budget passed by year end. This is a planning document, so this is why it's at the committee meeting here. So the 2020 budget timeline establishes the processes of developing the 3-year operating budget this year. And like I said, just to ensure compliance with the MGA as well. It's before you here. I'll run through it really quickly. It will be based on the annual budget and preparation policy, and you've seen that policy last year, aligning the potential tax rate increases to Alberta CPI at July 1st of this year. One thing that we have changed this year is the 10-year capital plan, and the annual capital budget will be prepared before the operation budget. Last year we had some challenges getting everything done in the October months, so we want to plan ahead and bring that forward to you guys in the September committee meeting before we even actually get into the operations. So that's another change there. Also the community groups, we had the feedback that there was a very long night, so we've proposing that we split up the presentations over 2 nights. The first night, September 23rd, we'll see internal groups like the Lacombe Police Commission, FCSS, and Mary Seymour Public Library present, and they'll have a half an hour slot on those nights there. Following that would be the October 7th, where the remainder of the groups would have a 20-minute slot there. If you feel that a group this needs to be changed around, let me know and we can definitely rearrange the schedule there. This isn't being set in stone yet, and the community groups haven't been notified of these times yet. So the budget workshop, they're slated for the end of October again. Once again, it'll be an afternoon, a full day, and then another evening if we do need it. This year we'll have to consider the 2 extra years, but this will be presented on a consolidation basis with the assumptions that we have made as administration. Another change that we felt that was good is having a public hearing instead of a budget workshop. Historically, the budget workshops have been not that well attended, so I don't think it's worth our time this year. So we will like the public to have the opportunity to come and speak before council before the adoption of the budget. So the social, the public engagement piece, we're proposing this year that we do similar to last year, which is music in the park and the farmers market on I think it's the Wednesdays and the Fridays. And before that, we can establish the budget survey as well. That was effective last year and gave some good feedback. Also, one of the council's strategic goals is that at least 60% of citizens indicate that they get excellent or good value for their property taxes. So that would be one question addressed in this survey if you do want to partake in this survey. After the engagement here, we will be posting draft budgets on our website, trying to solicit feedback through other means instead of a public open house. With all that said and done, we're hoping for a budget adoption on the November 25th at the council meeting, similar to what we did last year. So yeah, that's the proposed plan at this stage, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Councillor Hibbs?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just one thing I noted on like the breakdown, the actual timeline, it's got all the dates, et cetera, minor thing, but it says October 15th for budget presented to council, and that's a Tuesday. So was that because it was a holiday or?
Thanksgiving's on the
Okay.
Monday.
Okay, that makes sense. And then the public hearing would be on the 12th of November, and that's like 2 weeks before like the budget's adopted. And I'm just wondering, I like the idea, but I'm just worried that that's so late in the process that I'm just wondering that the public might feel that it's kind of too late. Does that make sense? So I don't know if we want to give that a bit more thought. I don't know what other members of council think about that, but that's my only concern, is I just don't want people to feel, like I want them to feel like they have a chance to have input in it, that, so if something does come up that it can be addressed, I guess. I don't know. I'm not to say that they don't have opportunity before that, but they actually will have seen the budget by that point, I guess, is my understanding. So, thank you.
My apologies, wrong button. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, very easy. I guess my only comment is towards the internal community groups. From my understanding, I think the Lacombe Police Commission, from previous stating that they're going to do a strategic plan and so forth, and I think only going from 20 minutes to 30 minutes, in light of the amount of their budgets, I think could be, 45 minutes to an hour is just, because I think from the past two budgets, I think we need to become a lot more informed with the Lacombe Police Commission and try to have a little more positive outcome than the last couple of years, in my opinion, to be for them groups. That's towards the internal community groups.
Chief Cuddy?
Having the internal groups on a separate night will give you as much time.
Oh,
We put
so we're not
30
stuck to
minutes just as it'll be longer, but if council wants 2 hours first, that's no problem. And we'll expand
Well, that's it too.
whatever you need.
So is there any other input on the budget timeline? Some very minor adjustments that could be considered. Move forward, that gives you enough direction?
Oh yeah,
Very good, thank you.
thanks.
Director Juke, will bring us up to date on the MEGlobal Athletic Park funding options, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This report presents some additional new information to council. I won't go over the well-known information that comprises about 50% of this report. The background information is there, previous motions. But moving to page 2, I'll start with just a little description of the surface level impacts. The development of additional capacity at the field house and installation of track and field amenities at the athletic park is a significant increase to the city's recreation service levels in this area. And it will cause a corresponding impact on the annual operating costs of the park, primarily due to the increased needs for capital replacement reserve. A quick note about legislative implications. The agreements that are in place right now will have to be renegotiated. These are underway, but have not had progress since the last time this has come before council, just FYI. Organizational capacity and business plan impacts. I just want to make a note that the expansion, the operational capacity of the city's parks department in support of the expanded facility is not anticipated to be largely affected. So no additional staff and any additional supplies costs can be absorbed. And the city's schedule of business plan activities will not be affected if the project goes ahead, because primarily it will be the LAPA that will be doing the project management, largely. So So turning to the funding options and impacts, which is basically the key of this report, center of this report, I just wanted to update council that myself, a representative from the county, and LAPA board members had 2 working group meetings in February and March to discuss the different options for funding or supporting this project. We discussed a number of alternatives which have also been brought up here in council, so I just want to explain what was determined about those other options. The 2 were use of the association's current capital reserve to reduce the contribution needed from the municipalities, and the other option was a loan for the city share of funding. And turning to page 3 at the top there, we'll just describe some of the outcomes of our discussions. The association's current capital reserve is a mix of donations, rental revenues, and city and county operational grant funds. Use of the capital reserve now could reduce immediate need for cash from the city, but future operational grants would have to be increased so that you can rebuild it, or the city might have to accept the capital replacement liability into its 10-year capital plan. So essentially, robbing Peter to pay Paul, I guess, is essentially less cost now, but more cost in future. And a city loan to the association was used in the past to manage unexpected shortfalls in funding. This was rejected as an option for this project since the county would not consider a loan to be a city contribution, and therefore they would not match. They would not have a matching offer. So just looking to clarify a little bit more as well about the project funding itself. 5 capital funding sources will be called upon to compile the $4.5 million needed for the project. And currently the association is sufficiently funded to commence and complete phase 1 of the project, which they hope to do starting in the fall of 2019. As we know, the corporate sponsorship, MEGlobal, committed $2 million in new sponsorship funds towards the expansion project. $1 million is paid, $500,000 will be paid in early 2020. And here's where the report's a little incorrect. It does say that $500,000 will be paid in early 2020. That's actually not accurate. That's changed since the donation was announced. In fact, that last $500,000 has been reallocated into an operating grant of $25,000 per year for 20 years because the current sponsorship agreement that MEGlobal has with LAPA is expiring. So that amount of money, the $25,000 they're currently getting per year for operating, is going to disappear. So they'll commence using the $500,000, I believe, in the spring of 2021. I just wanted to let you know the association had a fundraiser event in March, which was well attended, and they'll continue to be seeking donations from the community. They anticipate raising $500,000 through their fundraising activities. That's their target. And again, the in-kind donations from contractors hired during the project is anticipated to reach $500,000. It is not a committed amount now. It's they're basing that estimate on their track record, LAPA's track record. They are preparing applications for $2.6 million in grants through external government grant programs, the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, or ICIP, and the Community Facility Enhancement Program, or CFEP. Grant funds, if received, will be allocated to the project and be used first before any funding from the city or county is called upon. We anticipate that the ICIP decision will be received by September 2019, which will be about the time that they hope to start on the first phase of the project. And the CFEP grant application will be submitted by October 1st, 2019. The window for their large grant application has passed. Municipal funding from Lacombe County and the City of Lacombe, just to describe this a little bit better. Again, the county's contribution in the past has been delivered by a combination of cash and in-kind work. The total value of the county's contribution may match the value of the City of Lacomb's contribution, but will not exceed it. It's looking fairly positive for matching, certainly can be asked for. There's a table here that describes the funding sources that I've just gone through. It's a little mislabeled, so I'd like to just alter that in your minds if I could. Because of that reallocation of 25% of the MEGlobal sponsorship donation announced in the fall, the first box of $2 million should actually be labeled the MEGlobal sponsorship and the LAPA fundraising activities. Together, those will amount to $2 million, it's anticipated. The second box that now says other in-kind and fundraising should actually just be in-kind donations expected from contractors and so on. External government grants. In the first box there, in the first column, you'll see that there's no money there. In the subsequent columns, it does show some funding from CFEP and ISIP. They're hopeful amounts. Potential county contribution and potential city contribution in each of the columns is matching. And the total value of the project is $4.5 million. And just to clarify again, that cash needs of the project is just over $4 million, and they're anticipating getting $500,000 free work to reduce the costs of the project. So just going forward, the methodology is kind of important because the city's share of costs will be contributed through payment and invoicing associated with the project using city cash reserves. If as required after the association's other funding sources have been used, and the ask is to a maximum of $1 million. At the end of the project, when all costs are crystallized, the city will borrow to replace the reserves used and thereafter incur annual servicing costs for that venture. However, the city borrowing can be further reduced by use of the Community Builder Fund, which currently today sits at $150,000. If the 2020 budget is as past years, that amount will climb to $200,000, and if another $50,000 is contributed, I think as per policy, that amount will then be $250,000 by the spring of 2021. And that's of course assuming that it's not otherwise allocated for other asks. I guess it's pretty important to recognize that the current 2019-2028 capital plan shows the retirement of tax-supported debt in 2021 that will reduce the city's annual debt servicing costs by $87,000. So some things are getting paid off. So by that year, there'll be a little more breathing room for debt servicing. And again, if that borrowing was to occur in 2021 as anticipated, payments would not commence until 2022. And that option could limit any potential increases, or at least certainly send them off till another year. The reason this is coming forward, though, is because both municipalities pretty much need to include their contribution commitment, if they make one, in their 2020 budgets. The next table here, Table 2, shows potential cost impacts and associated tax increase commencing in 2021. This includes some additional operating costs that the city will incur when the facility is expanded, insurance increase, and there's an additional ask from LAPA of $10,000 plus I think 2% in the following years from 2021 onward from the city to the LAPA in their operating grant, and that's because they'll have to increase their contribution to capital reserves for the additional facility that's now going to be built. Total operating budget increase to the city will be $102,110, assuming $1 million is financed. And I think with that, I'll leave it to, I just wanted to make one other point. I did look into the Recreation and Culture Master Plan recommendation, how it prioritized a running track. It was a mid-level, just slightly above mid-level priority amenity for the community. But if current additional factors are considered, the project may have been prioritized higher. There's 3 factors that I identified as maybe contributing a higher priority. The first one is obviously reduction of the capital cost of the project through a 50% upfront donation from sponsorships and other donations. There is a positive economic impact to the city of Lacombe that can be anticipated because of a large construction project occurring, because of visitor draw to the city through tournaments and other activities and events, and potentially the attraction of families to the city and county for access to the youth development offered by first-rate athletic facilities, but that is anecdotal. I have not researched that. The following strategic objective is not in alignment with the proposal, and that is fiscal prudence to manage the city to allow for property tax increases near inflation, because in the worst case funding scenario, there will be a, what should we come up with? Nearly 3/4% tax impact to the community. I guess with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Chief Cody?
So I just want to make 2 notes. Director Duke had mentioned that the increase to LAPA operating grant is $10,000 plus a 2% increase, but it's actually a 12% increase that's shown here on an annual basis. So it's a very relatively minor number, $1,000 or so, just so you know. And then the tax impact percentage, I just want to reiterate Director Duke's comments that that does not reflect the Community Builder Fund contribution that would potentially be available if it is not otherwise allocated to the Performing Arts Center. Of course, those are 2 projects that you're considering right now. Both are eligible, both are for the causes. You can only allocate the money once, so just keep that in mind.
Director Duke, I was wondering from the notes for the study that was done, I had an individual approach me and suggest that the running track was they were given, the public was under the impression this was for an indoor running track. So I said I would bring that up and made it perfectly clear that while the study may or may not have indicated that, I would ask in a public forum to see if in fact that was the case.
Very good, I can check that.
Okay. I'm assuming her thoughts were that she perhaps would have placed her priorities elsewhere if it were to go for an outdoor track. She was not in a particularly pleasant mood when she was explaining it, so I just said that I would do it. So please check into that and see how it was worded. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. From being at the LAPA fundraiser, and correct me if I'm wrong, for those in the gallery, is it true the current users of the facility the youth groups do not pay any fees and so forth? When you're up on stage, sorry, I'm going to be improper to address the question.
Do you want us to answer?
Yeah, sorry, I just, because my understanding when you're up on stage, you said none of the groups pay fees for the use of the facility.
All of the groups pay a fee, and they earn credits back for volunteer work. And in the end, they net it out to pretty much 0.
Okay, thank you.
Director Duke.
I'd just like to comment that the city does have a joint facility use agreement with Wolf Creek Public Schools that pretty much mirrors that, where there won't be charges made either way when a school uses a facility or the city facility, or when the city uses a school facility.
Does anyone have anything further? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy.
I guess I was curious a little bit about the fundraising piece. So you're saying it's the sponsorship and the fundraising together now is $2 million, and then in kind will be another $500,000. Is that correct? So how long will it take the LAPA to raise $500,000? Do we have any sense of that? Like that the event, I guess I wasn't privy to how much they can fundraise in a year. So how long will it take for them to raise $500,000? Is I don't know, that seems important to me, that it's not going to take 25 years or something like that. It is a LAPA estimate, so let's ask them if we may.
Sure. 12 to 18 months tops. I'd suggest we have two components in there. One is work in kind. We've estimated 10%. The first project we had, it was 18%. We're only estimating 10%. In return, we give those construction companies recognition at the park permanent and at our events. And I would suggest that of the 500,000, we're probably, we don't have the check set, we're probably uncommitted to about 100 grand of that already. And we haven't started, so. And may I add, sorry, we did supply a fundraising plan, and it showed that it was actually a $750,000 plan, but some of it was going to be over time, so we only did that front at 500,000.
Chief Gotti?
Mayor Creasy, you had asked the question of whether the 2013 Recreation and Culture Master Plan of the city identified the need for a running or walking track as an indoor and outdoor facility. I just double checked, it is identified as an indoor park facility priority. It is not identified on the outdoor facility priority list.
Okay, appreciate that clarification. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Appreciate that. Now on this project, my understanding from previous meetings with your group that this facility will be open to anybody that wants to run on that track anytime during the day. Is that correct?
The gates are open, yes.
So we can anticipate a few less injuries instead of running on asphalt. Running on the track will certainly be a lot better. Now the number one user of this facility, I understand, will be the schools. I assume that is the case?
During the day, yeah. I don't know that we've, again, we're contacting track organizations, etc., and it'll be able to be used at all times. But during the day, you're absolutely right. The schools have access to it.
And my opinion of that is that it certainly, if we have this facility, will enhance our track and field commitments at the schools and increase the abilities of those athletes and certainly their opportunities to go on further and certainly for scholarships or whatever at the university level. The other question I have is regarding the life of the track. I think some of the numbers are 10 years, is that right, that you're mentioning? For the life of the track?
15, I believe. Yep.
15 was the number? Okay.
We believe we can extend it with good maintenance, as we've seen with the football field.
Yeah, because I mean, the football field looks terrific. It seems like it's exceeding what you originally anticipated for replacement. And the materials I saw regarding the track, it's quite impressive. I saw samples of it, and I think it's certainly would be world-class facility. So I'm quite impressed with the facility itself. The funding, maybe we'll have certainly some work that has to be done on that, but the facility itself is terrific.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So is this through Scott Builders, is this a budget or has the project of the already been RFP'd? Like since it's obviously tax funded, is it going to be, like, is this a budget we see from Scott Builders, or is this our project already been RFP'd, or is tax money, will it be some stipulations that we see in RFP?
So I'll take that question if possible. My understanding is this is primarily prepared for the purposes of estimating the project costs. It is not a budget, an estimate for a contract, and that the project will be put to tender. All components of the project will be put to open tender, with, of course, preferences given to those who offer value-added addendums to their work.
And sorry, one more to Director Gowdy. Is this typical of 15-year? Like I've seen other projects go to 25, 30. Is this type as a amortizing 15 years is over longer?
So I think once you got down to the actual borrowing, there's potential to amortize further on some components. So the MGA limits your ability to amortize capital work over the lifetime of the useful lifetime of the asset. So if it's 15 years, then the track component, for example, you can only go 15 years on. But I believe there is some components in the building that would have a lifespan hopefully much longer than 15 years. So you could amortize that over a longer period, which might have a minor impact on the tax rate to support it.
Director Duke, was there any indication on these other funding sources, where we're at with them, with the county and the federal and provincial agencies?
There's been positive feedback from the county administration staff about the plan, I guess, and the phasing of the project. And again, they reiterated that they would be potentially matching the city grant amount and no more. That's the most commitment we've got, of course, at this point. As far as the grant programs, I'm working with the LAPA board to ensure that a very high-powered ISIP grant application goes in. We'll do the best we can, and CFEP will be after that. Probably will copy a lot of the information over from the first grant that we had to do. I consider myself a team member on that one.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. So now the next table I'm looking at is table 2, and I'm looking at the operating grant and how it will be increased. I think it's important that people realize that we already offer 50,000, right? Free. So this will be increased to 60. Is that correct? Yes.
That is correct.
And then I guess, so the athletic park, so who is ultimately the owner of the park after this is completed? Is it the city?
It's the city. The land is owned by Wolf Creek Public Schools,
right,
on lease to the city. I think the term for that is about 35 years. The city will own the facilities, yes.
Okay, because I guess in conversations I've had with people about this, like when citizens have a passion for a project, most of these projects are great. They're great, but we have to make decisions in the context of other decisions. And I guess it would be helpful sometimes for citizens to realize when we put some of these facilities beside each other what the operating grants are. So when it just says 10,000 here, it's almost not fair that people don't see that it's added to another 50. Just because, yeah, some people are passionate about our tracks, some people are passionate about the arts, some people are passionate about the community building at LMC. I could be passionate about municipal transit. I don't know what we want to all say here, but the idea is this is in the context of all the things we're asked to do as city councillors, and that's the part that I struggle with is what's the value of each and what do they each actually cost the city. So I wouldn't mind seeing sometimes a table comparing all of those things.
Thank you, Councillor Hooks. I'd also like to mention that that is accurate information. That is a good idea to present that. I'd like to also see the value of the volunteer contribution, like put a value on that as well. It would be a good comparative.
So just for some additional clarification on the total operating budget increase, Director Juke. So as the theoretical capital contribution from the city decreases, so does the operating budget increase. I'm just wondering what, I'm not quite sure I understand the correlation here. What?
So you're asking a question about Table 2?
Correct, Table 2, total
Yeah.
operating budget increase.
So it's total operating budget increase, not the total operating budget contributed from the city to the association. It's just the increase that is presented by this particular project.
Right, but how is that affected by the city's capital contribution?
If the city makes a capital contribution of $1 million and borrows to get that, the debt servicing will be $84,410 per year for 15 to 25 years. There's an increase in insurance, there's an increase to the operating grant to LAPA for the additional amount of money that has to go in for capital replacement of the track at some point. So the total operating budget increase would be $102,000 from its current level of $50,000. So it would be $152,110 going forward. 2021 onward, 2021 onward. 2022, beg your pardon, onward. After the project's completed.
Okay, so that is just the increase, that doesn't include the 50 already then?
That's correct.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Creasy. I'll continue to ask questions. So forgive my ignorance, how many months of the year is the park operational?
All but 3.
So,
Being an artificial turf field and I believe a hard surface running track, once it's cleared off, it's usable. It doesn't have to dry out.
so there is regular snow removal then on it through the, okay. But you were saying, I saw four fingers going.
It's probably 3 to 4.
3.5.
Let's go 3.5.
March 15th till the end of November.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Cuddy?
So you had also asked a question there about clearing snow. And I don't think there's any intention to clear snow from the facility. There is.
We do that now.
From the running track though, I meant?
Yeah.
Probably be done at the same time.
Yeah.
March 15th till the middle or end of November, as long as it's being used.
So I realize it's a very small item, but on that note of snow removal, given that the track theoretically would be around the outside of the field, where is all the snow going to be going in? I just was curious how that's going to affect operating costs.
We move it now, and we actually go outside of the area. Minimal, very, very minimal. We're looking at an extra 8 lanes around the area we already do. So,
But I guess I'm just surprised it's okay to drive a vehicle across the running track though.
yeah,
Okay.
probably easier to drive across the track than it is the field. We have specific wheels that our contractor uses, specific blades they use. They worked with us over the years to be able to do it properly.
Thank you. Any other items for discussion? Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'm not familiar with grant applications whatsoever, but if you did grant application over 2 separate years, if you're doing the project over 2 separate years, is the likelihood or probability of having a better success rate of getting higher grant funding than such a big application at once? I have no idea of grant application. I'm just asking if anybody else.
Your button takes precedence over Director's Jude, but you both want to answer, so go ahead.
Sure. So, so the question was with the ISIP program is expected to be oversubscribed, and so it's supposed to be a 10-year program if they're rolling this money out, but it's likely that it will be, I think they've only guaranteed 5 years, and I think we're on year 3 now. So I would say it is better actually to get it in sooner, a bigger project earlier.
Director Duke, anything you care to add to that?
One thing, and that is that one of the requirements of both programs, I believe, is that they will not fund any expenditures that have already been made on the project. You can start the project and make expenditures, but those will be eliminated from the grant award at the time the grant award is made. So if you spent $500,000 before the grant decision is made, they won't be looking at that $500,000 as part of their, potential grant. And I think they are expressed in terms of percentages. I'm not 100% sure of that, but they might be.
So you're suggesting in this particular case, because it is a phased approach, and that's not really an issue then, or what is it that?
Well, again, we're presenting worst case scenario, no grant funding in the particular scenario that we're presenting tonight. Any grant amount would help, obviously, and I would suggest as well, if it's unsuccessful in its grant applications in the first year, it should make second grant applications, and even in the same programs, reapply.
Not seeing a lot of other lights going on here, but if there's anything, we would certainly go through it now. If not, if there is nothing else, then that concludes our business for this evening.
Sorry, we're all in shock.
We're all in shock.
That is a record. It's only 5:40. I thought it was 6:40 there for a minute. Do we really have a motion to adjourn the committee meetings? I think we do not.
Also moved.
Thank you, Councillor Gullickson. All those in favor? Thanks.